Welcome to Flow State. I want to make a quick video and just sort of try to put some perspective onto the U.S. economy and vicariously the global economy, because the dollar is the world reserve currency. And you have a lot of spending happening right now. And it's really easy for people lose track of what $1 trillion really is and what this means. After a million, people's minds just sort of blur out. You really can't fathom a number this big. But just to give some perspective, if you wanted to count to a million seconds is, hold on, I better check this, make sure I'm not giving you bad information. A million seconds is 12 days. A billion seconds is 32 years. A trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So I'm going to say it again. A million seconds is 12 days. A billion seconds, 32 years. A trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So that's the sort of scaling up we're dealing with. And that sort of, I don't know, hopefully gives you a little bit better grasp of what it means when we talk about $1 trillion. So this is usdebtclock.org. It's a really cool little site that you can spend a lot of time on if you are so inclined. And I encourage it. It's great to know this stuff. But here's the headline. 28 billion, 28 trillion 344 billion 400 million and counting. So that's the total U.S. national debt. That's what we owe people. That amounts to $85,000 per U.S. citizen. Every citizen, babies, old people, or $250,000 per taxpayer. So here's the spending numbers, budget deficits. You can look at where it goes. The biggest budget items are Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, and the military-industrial complex. The interest on the debt is $400 billion. It's important to keep this debt interest. Let me rephrase that. It's insightful to look at this on a timeline and realize that if you drop this timeline back to before the Second World War, there's almost no national debt. If you go back before the Federal Reserve system was implemented in the U.S., if you go back to like the early 20s, basically nothing. And then the Federal Reserve System bumped it up quite a bit. World War II bumped it up. Here in the 60s, our debt to GDP ratio, which means that the GDP is the total, it's a dollar amount they put on the total production. So every good, service, every value produced in an economy in a year is included in the GDP. So in 1960, we owed a little bit over half what we could make in a year. 1980, it fell back, which surprised me. I'd be curious to look into these two numbers a little bit more and figure out why we fell back. But in, what was it, 77? Under Nixon, they lost the gold. They removed the gold standard behind the dollar. So it went from having something backing up the money, at least in theory, to, hey guys, we're just literally doing paper printing here. After that, it started ramping up, and that's where we're at now. So it'd take us a year and 4 months worth of production in this country to pay off the debt accrued. And that's just shooting up. They're printing money so fast. Let's carry on. The national public debt. That's what the national government owes. U.S. total debt includes households, businesses, states, local governments, financial institutions, and the federal government. So this U.S. total debt is all the debt of all the entities in the country. Even though there's fewer dollars in the economy now than in circulation now than there was 20 years ago, we've got 5 times the amount of M2 money supply, which is really, when somebody says, how much money do you have? Well, hopefully nobody's asking you that and you're not getting robbed. But if you think about the money that you have, you don't just count the cash. You probably, like me, don't even really carry cash. You think about what's in your bank. So the amount of money that people have functionally has gone up about 5 times. So down here they've got a little balance sheet. So assets per citizen, liabilities per citizen. Which 487, 444. So we got about $40,000 in $487 minus 444 equals so $43,000 per citizen. But if you divide that equity by total assets, 4,874. Doing a little rounding here, some napkin math. So in the whole country, what this bottom line is doing here, there are almost $500,000 worth of assets per U.S. citizen. There's also this much debt per citizen. So each citizen, there's a net equity of approximately $43,000, which isn't good. That means that's what, 9%? We have 9% of the less than 9% of the value of our country unencumbered by debt. So over 91% of our country's assets are encumbered by debt. We have sold ourselves. And people are always asking me about capitalism and communism and my opinion on those two things. And they always miss the biggest flaw in capitalism. They think, well, people just don't even understand what the systems are anymore. So I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the biggest flaw in capitalism is that it allows this shit to happen. And we have sold our country to the highest bidder. And this isn't anything new. This is not, you know, none of the things happening now are, and this is my opinion, my interpretation, but understanding the financial situation we as a country have gotten ourselves into, um, and knowing that this huge shit ball was coming towards us. This is not unexpected, right? We're gonna have problems now. We've known that for decades. So is it a coincidence that right when we're having uh, our economic roosters or chickens come home to roost, however the saying goes, is it a coincidence that right now we're having all sorts of weird things like, I don't know, crazy viruses and lockdowns and riots and uh, ships wedging themselves in canals and wars in the Middle East and uh, just all manner of madness and insanity? No, it's not. It's all been manufactured to distract people from this so that people don't know who fucked things up or how things got fucked up, so that the people who fucked things up can keep fucking them up and can roll into a new paradigm where they're still in control of the world that they've fucked up. It's crazy listening to the global elites talk about climate change and reducing emissions and you need to drink out of paper straws and all that shit, or creating an inclusive economy, an inclusive society. You motherfuckers are the ones who did this shit. We don't need you to save us from the problems that you've already created. It's absurd. But anyways, I digress. Understanding this about the world we live in then puts a different um, perspective on everything that's going on now. And so I encourage you to check this out, spend some time on it, dig into it, learn stuff, ask questions if you got them. Another thing that they're doing right now is you got to be a savvy economic um, researcher. They're starting to change definitions of things like inflation. Uh, Last I looked up, they had changed inflation to the increase in the price of goods over time. That's not what inflation is. Inflation is an increase in the money supply. The price of goods rising over time is a symptom of inflation. It's not what it is. So they're doing little things like this to sort of muddy the water so that people can't get a clear understanding of what's really going on here. But anyways, hopefully this was informative. And let me know if you got any questions. I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Do all the things. I'm out.